This introductory video will provide an overview of Timesheet Sidekick, a lightweight, easy-to-use time tracking program for Microsoft Windows. We'll look at how timesheets are created and maintained, and how you can view and analyze the information from your timesheets. Timesheet Sidekick works very well in a number of different situations, such as individuals working on their own or working in a team, or teams in which each team member has regular access to a computer and creates their own timesheet, or teams in which most team members do not have regular access to a computer and timesheets are created by an administrator. To demonstrate the central features of Timesheet Sidekick, we'll show its use by an individual working in a team. In this scenario, I am a software developer working for Gibson's Brewing Software. Our main product is CBMS, Craft Brewery Management System. We're looking at part of my Windows desktop now, and I'm going to demonstrate using Timesheet Sidekick for 1 week. This window down here is not part of Timesheet Sidekick. It's just here to allow me to specify the date and time and to simulate the passage of time. So it's now Monday, March the 12th, 8 a.m., and I'm going to launch Timesheet Sidekick. Now let's stop the clock and have a quick look at the components of the main window. Timesheet Sidekick visually groups your tasks by category using an alternating coloring scheme. The 5 categories we've got here are Admin, Time Off, Customer Support, Brew Day Manager version 3, and Other. Each row in a timesheet represents a task which time can be recorded against. Each task has a name or description, belongs to a category, and can have further details entered about it. The times recorded against the tasks appear here, as we'll see in a moment. Rows in the timesheet can be inserted, deleted, and selected. Selecting rows can be used just as a visual aid or in conjunction with some of the commands in the Edit menu. Let's think about categories again for a minute. If we enter a different category name here, we can see the alternating coloring scheme kicks in automatically, separating customer support from the new category. Likewise, this splits up this category into 2. Before we get rid of these extra categories, let's have a quick look at the color options. This is the one I usually like to use, so I'll say OK. Now we'll get rid of those extra categories. Alright, notice that we're at the start of a new week and we've got here a fresh timesheet with no times recorded. What is on our timesheet though are all the categories, tasks, and details carried forward from our timesheet from last week. Let's have a look at our timesheet from last week for comparison. Note the dates listed at the top of these columns. The main difference to notice between the 2 timesheets is the presence of all these recorded times. You can see that last week I worked 8 hours each day for a total of 40 hours. I finished off last week doing some development for the new version of the Brew Day Manager, working on the hopping schedule. Because that was the last thing I was working on, that task is now selected as the current task as I start this new day. Let's start the clock again. Every 6 minutes, which is 1/10 of an hour, Timesheet Sidekick will increment the time spent on your active task by 0.1 or 1/10 of an hour. You can see when that incrementing is going to happen by looking at the countdown in this next increment control here. We launched the program at 8 o'clock, so the first increment will happen at 8:06. Let's simulate the passage of time to a few seconds before that, and then watch what happens. We've now recorded our first 1/10 of an hour for this new week. Now we'll simulate the passage of more time, pretending that I'm here at my desk working on this hopping schedule feature. At this point, a little after 10 o'clock, I receive a phone call from one of our customers. Lamberton Brewing has phoned with a question about how the mash module is working, so I'm shifting into customer support mode now. Let's look for a sec at the customer support category. We can see these 3 customer support tasks I worked on last week. We can also see that those tasks have been carried forward to this week. We don't need to look at last week anymore, so we'll close it. Now let's look a little more at timesheet editing. I'm using arrow cursor keys now to move the active cell around, much the same as you would do in a spreadsheet. And you can also click on any cell with the mouse. I'm done with the Brew Day Manager tweaks for Lazy River Brewing and the hopping schedule bug fix for Beachcomber Brewing, so I'll delete those tasks from this week's timesheet. I go to this cell first and press delete, then down arrow twice and press delete again. I might be doing some more recipe editor improvements for Lamberton Brewing, so I'll leave that on this week's timesheet for now. But I've got this new issue with Lamberton that they've just phoned about, so I'll add a new row in their section. Control C to copy, Control V to paste, okay, this is what I'm going to be working on now, so I'll select it as the active task. And we'll simulate the passage of time until about noon. Now I'm going to take a 1-hour lunch break. I'm going to use Timesheet Sidekick's built-in break pseudo task. Let's see what happens 6 minutes into my break. When the break task is selected, your time gets assigned to the break cell, but doesn't get saved to any of the tasks and isn't reflected in any of the totals. Now let's advance to about 1 o'clock and set our active task back to this mash module issue. I'll work on this for another hour and then switch back to development of the hopping schedule and stay on that task until 5 o'clock. I am now done for the day, so I'll shut down the program. Now we'll pretend it's 8 a.m. the following day, Tuesday the 13th, and I'll launch the program. We can see now that our times for yesterday's tasks are showing here in the column for Monday, and the times for today, Tuesday, are blank. After an hour, I'm called over to a Brew Day Manager design meeting, so I select that task and off I go. When I get back to my desk, an hour and a half have passed. I go back to my hopping schedule work, do that until noon, go for my lunch break, come back in an hour, and spend the rest of the day working on the hopping schedule. Again, we're done for the day, and we close the program. Now let's say that I had 2 days of vacation on Wednesday and Thursday, and now I'm back in the office at 8 a.m. on Friday the 16th, and I launch the program. I work for an hour on the hopping schedule. We can see now that we've got some blank time for Wednesday and Thursday. I like to record all my time, even time away, so I'm going to enter my 2 days of vacation and make a note for myself to keep a record of what I was doing with my time off. Now let's go until noon. At this point, I remember that I was called away for a company meeting earlier today, and I forgot to change my active task when that happened. So I'm going to manually make the correction to my timesheet. I remember that the meeting was about half an hour, so I'm going to put 0.5 here and reduce this from 4 to 3.5. Now I'm off to lunch for an hour. And now let's have a look at Timesheet Sidekick's searching capabilities. When I get back from lunch, I get a support call from Beachcomber Brewing. They're having an issue with a stuck mash, and they're trying to figure out how to record details about it in the Brew Day Manager. I remember dealing with a similar issue about a year ago, and I'm pretty sure I've got some good notes about it somewhere, but to find those I need to know exactly when it was. So I go to Tools, Search, and search for Stuck. There we go. That second hit is the one I'm looking for. I can see that it was April 04 last year. I can open that timesheet and see that the day was April the 20th. Now I can find my notes and quickly help Beachcomber with their issue. So I work with them on that for an hour and finish the day on the hopping schedule. Now we're at the end of the work week, and before I go home I want to do a bit of an overview of the year so far. So let's have a quick look at Tools, Dashboard. At the left here, we can specify what period we're interested in. We're looking at this year. This top pie chart and data grid shows all the categories we've got time recorded against. For each of these, we can see things such as how many hours have been recorded and the number of timesheets that those hours appear on. Now let's look at how we're able to drill down into this information. Two of my categories are version 3 of the Batch Planning module and Brew Day Manager. If I select Batch Planning module, the middle pie chart and grid shows the 5 tasks I've put my time against in this category. Now if I select one of those tasks, Development, the bottom pie chart and grid shows us the details descriptions I've put time against. You may recall that I spent most of my time this week on the Brew Day Manager doing development of the hopping schedule. There are 19.7 hours total, some last week and some this week. Now let's look at my time off. All the time in this category is either under statutory holidays or vacation. Let's look at the vacation time I've taken so far this year. I can select it in either the grid or the pie chart. Now we can see my vacation details. I took 8 hours in January to make a weekend into a long weekend. I took a full week off to visit Portland in the week of February 25th, and recall that I took 2 days off this week for yard work. Finally, let's have a look at the customer support category. We can see the 3 customers that I've been doing support for this year, and selecting each, I can review the things I've done for each of them. Here's the hour I spent today with Beachcomber's stuck mash issue. I'm off for the weekend now, so I shut everything down. On the following Monday morning, I launched Timesheet Sidekick. And here we are, once again, with a new blank timesheet for the new week, with all the categories, tasks, and details carried forward from last week's timesheet. This concludes this overview demo of Timesheet Sidekick. I invite you to download the free version and try it for yourself.